Hey, it's Paul. I know I said I might do a follow up to the series I did, and I've been meaning to do it. I had a couple things happen. It rained, so I wasn't able to. So it's a couple days later. Just notice the shirt's different. So when I was doing my series about a week ago on the topic of Aspergers, I came across two internet articles I wanted to bring up, and I wasn't able to do it. So this might be a little longer. I'm going to try and cut it down. Us Aspies are long-winded, as you'll find out. So the two articles was 25 famous people with Asperger's, and then there's a series of quotes I want to read really fast. When we go into this list, you will notice a lot of similarities within these people, which you might not have noticed until I brought them out. But I will say the one that is predominant is detail. We love our details. We like to be detailed. I had a model railroad layout building growing up, and I used to build the houses. I mean, I went to the point of putting grout in the windows or in the brick and putting dirt on the windowsills and all that. And my mom always thought I was nuts, but it meant to me. So let's get into this. I'm not going to keep you very long. So moving down, 25 famous people. We're going to start with number 25, famous director Stanley Kubrick. Now, you might know him from 2001 Space Odyssey, if I remember that correctly, and many other films. I've not seen any of his films, I'm going to be completely honest. But from this says he was quite obsessive and had trouble dealing with people while making movies. When we are in that zone, we have a one-track mind and a serious one-track mind. While that sounds bad, his Asperger's also led to his insane attention to detail and eventual fame as a film director. Okay, number 24, another Hollywood icon, Dan Aykroyd. Canadian. He said his Asperger's helped him with the film Ghostbusters because he was obsessed with ghosts and law enforcement, and to this day he still is. Both which made him a perfect person for the role. For those of you who don't know, Asperger's can cause an individual to have intense focus on a narrow range of interests. My interest is cars and dancing, and history, and we will go for it. Number 23, Robin Williams. As we know, he's no longer with us, but I went back and watched a lot of his stand-up, and you will notice he's very anxious and very antsy. And I am like that with large crowds. I don't like to talk. I mean, doing this series is hard enough. Well, it's easy because I'm talking into a camera. But in crowds, I'm not really there. I don't like it. But Robin Williams excelled at this. And unfortunately, depression is one of the things that happens with people with Asperger's because we have so much trouble with social interactions and rejection and that. He passed away a few years ago. And it says, thanks to his social awkwardness as hyperactive nature, it has been suggested that the late comedian likely had an autism spectrum disorder like Asperger's. Unfortunately, like I said, he also battled depression. Autistic spectrum disorders can lead to the classic troubled artist stereotype because Vincent van Gogh was probably very into that. So, going down the list, number 22, Michelangelo. And it says this famous Renaissance artist was notable for being unable to keep relationships with anybody. Some experts have even hypothesized that his troubled social life and Asperger syndrome led to more intense focus on his artwork, which you see, Sistine Chapel. I mean, the stuff he made was legendary. You gotta be that level of detail. I mean, Aspies, our social lives are kind of dull, and so we have a lot more time to ourselves. So, I mean, you don't see anyone, coming in. He didn't have a lot of friends, so that made it easier for him to do the ceiling. So, moving on, I was going to make a Ninja Turtles crack right there, but I held back. Number 21, Charles Richter. Sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? We've heard it for many, many years. Charles Richter invented the Richter scale, which we know is the scale from, it's a little bit too, oh my gosh, we're all going to die, scale of earthquakes. The seismologist, famous for creating this scale, he was also known for social awkwardness. Although he fared poorly in the give and take of a conversation, which I do. I tell people I know, and my mom does the same thing. If I talk too much, she'll tell me to shut up. And I tell people, I said, if I'm talking too much, it's not going to offend me, it's not going to tick me off, just tell me to shut up. If you asked him to talk about earthquakes, he wouldn't stop. You ask me a question about World War II, I will sit down and I will give you a lecture like a college professor. It's just the way we are. These sorts of one-sided conversations are typical of Asperger's. Next page. Number 20. Some of these I'm going to just go fast. So I'm going to put the link in the description below so you can actually look. So number 20 is Susan Boyle. She was on Britain's Got Talent. She won second place, and she said although she was diagnosed by doctors with brain damage, if you remember my past episode, this is fairly new. Asperger's spectrum is very new. That maybe 20, 25 years old, not very long. Everything else has been around for ages. So back in those days, you were considered brain damaged. At birth, the diagnosis was later shown to be wrong. She, in fact, has Asperger's, which partially explained her lack of control over her emotions. Number 19, James Durbin. He placed fourth in American Idol in 2011. Now, he's got a double. He's got Asperger's and Tourette's. That's rough. I mean, I have enough trouble with Asperger's and Meniere's disease, which is a imbalance of the ear. Durbin's got the tics, and I give him a lot of props for being able to get out there and do it. And like a lot of people with Tourette's or something, if they have a niche, it solves their... There's a cat walking out my window. I try not to cut these. It just looked at me really funny. I'm like, what the heck? Anyway, because my driveway's right there. And also gives them a... I lost my train of thought, so please forgive me. If you have that tic, it helps. So, now, James Durbin, awesome. Number 18, Abraham Lincoln. Now, it's always been theorized, now mind you, this is it was always theorized that Lincoln had ADD, or ADHD. But more recent historical documents and research by psychologists have realized that he probably had Asperger's. Thanks to his love of routine, rigid nature, and history of depression, some psychologists have suggested that Lincoln had Asperger's. Of course, those traits led him to be the greatest president in history, as we know, except for the Depression. And he's fighting a war, But you look at his rigid detail, also his very, very bad business sense. Most people with Asperger's or some type of autism, we suck at money. We just are. We don't understand the whole concept, or we have really bad business sense. We are the nicest people. We will help you for like cheap and ruin ourselves. And that's, Lincoln, I think he failed as a bartender, a bunch of other things. So, number 17, Paddy Considine. I'm going to breeze over him. He's a British actor. In spite of Asperger's making it hard to read social cues, I've talked about that. I can't read body language. I have to work at it. This disorder has gifted him with intense focus for allowing him to overcome his deficit and become an award-winning actor. We like something, we'll do it. So, number 16 is Daryl Hannah. She was an actress in the 80s. She would rock back and forth to self-soothe. Aspie sometimes do that. I rub 2 coins in my pocket, or I'll just twiddle my fingers or twitch them just to kind of calm down if we're in a really awkward social situation. But she was in films in the 80s, such as Plash, before my time. Well, I was born in 84, so I guess it's around my time. So, number 15, Dr. Temple Grayden. She is an animal scientist. Her autism lets her relate better to animals than to people. We do that. We get along better with animals, or like I get along better with people much older than me, or much, much younger. I don't fit in my own age range. It's just our brains are just wired so differently. What she lacks in human social intelligence, which doesn't mean she's stupid. It just means, like I said, I'm not stupid. I just have some issues in the social things. The more she makes up for it when dealing with animals. She was even named one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people. and she likes dogs better. Dr. Doolittle, look at Dr. Doolittle. You could have an argument that he had Asperger's. He talked to animals. Well, he kind of talked back, so that's more of a... we're not going to go into that one. I'm just sticking with what I know. Number 14 is Prince John of the UK. No one's really... It's been theorized that he had Asperger's. He's a 20th century British prince. I don't know much about him, so I'm going to scroll back past him. Number 13 is Courtney Love, the widow of Kurt Cobain. She's still a hard rocker. Courtney was diagnosed with autism at age 9. Again, this is going to be the mid-90s, so wasn't really well known. This is all new. Although she is hesitant to discuss its exact manifestation, the singer has admitted that Asperger's led to some sort of introversion. We are very introverted people. We don't like to be, but we are. And I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, you don't have to be introverted. You can be an extrovert if you want." It don't work that way. It does not work that way. I would understand if you had maybe a broken finger and you got or a broken arm and you got to rehabilitate it. Yeah, you got to get it better. You got to get better. Our brains don't work that way. And I try to explain to people you just got to be better. You got to just throw yourself out there. I'm sorry, but this is not one of those things. When we try, we usually screw up. And then it makes it worse. Some do succeed, some don't. It's a give and take. It depends on the situation. Moving on, number 12, Andy Warhol, famous artist. Due to his eccentric personality and repetitive art, you see the soup can paintings, it has been speculated that Andy had a form of autism, probably Asperger's. He was very introverted. In case you have noticed by now, autism seems to be a major driver of creativity in some of the world's most famous artists. And it's not just painting. It's music. It's writing. Science. Next one is Henry Cavendish. I'm going to breeze over this. He was an 18th century British scientist. He was notorious for his inability to deal with others as well as his obsession with patterns. But it made him one of the greatest theoretical chemists and physicists of his time. And we're, like I said, now that it's starting to get out, we are understanding more and finding out amazing things. Number 10, Mozart. In spite of his social difficulties, he was a musical prodigy and wrote his first music at the age of 5. When I went to kindergarten, I had a 12th grade reading level. And I loved to read. I read everything I could get my hands on. Back in the day, you got, your parents would go to like the grocery store and you'd get those, the encyclopedias. You get like one or two at a time and it'd take you like 3 years to get the entire set. By that time, everything's outdated, so you got to throw it out and get a new set. But I read every book that came. I mean, I enjoyed reading the encyclopedia. I was the nerd. So, number 9, Blind Tom Wiggins. He was an African-American pianist in the 19th century. He was blind and learned to play piano at 4 years old. Again, like I said, we have this, if it's an artistic or maybe mechanical mind, we've evolved much faster. I don't want to use the word evolve, but that's the best word I can come up with right now. Similar to Mozart, Tom's Asperger's helped him to hear and interpret music in a way most people can't. So, number 8, Bill Gates. Now, it isn't confirmed. Some observers have noted that Bill Gates very well may have it. He rocks back and forth, which is sometimes what we do. Disdain for contradictory opinions and legendary eccentricities all point to an autism spectrum disorder. One thing that you will notice with Bill Gates is he does not dress GQ. The man is worth like what, $100 billion, something like that. Rich man. He dresses like he's a car salesman. And the way we are is if we like something and we don't like to fit in. Well, we do, but we like to dress comfortably. I don't like I wear button-up shirts. I've bought pants off eBay, the exact same what I like. It's just the way we are. We don't like to dress up. It makes us feel like we're not in our own skin, if that makes any sense to anyone. We just dress to be who we are. Some people may dress like I love wearing, 50s style clothes. Bill Gates likes to dress. I mean, like I said, this link's going to be in the description below. if you look at his glasses, that's like circa 1990, 2000, early 2000s, but it's what he likes. I do believe Warren Buffett probably has some type of it too. So, number 7 is King Charles of Sweden. He was just known for being stubborn, doing exactly the same thing over and over, and not feeling empathy for others. I've touched on this part with empathy. We have people will look at us and say, well, how would you feel if that happened to you? We can't. We can't understand that. Until it happens to us, we won't get it. We cannot comprehend it. I've had people say, you know, how would you feel if that happened to you? I'm like, I really don't know. I really don't. And it's really hard, especially in the workplace or something like that, and you have that problem, and your employer says, you know, how would you feel if that happened to you if you were buying something, and you know, you can say, we just don't. And it's harder for some people to understand that, and so it takes a very special person to work with us. I worked at a fixing construction equipment many years ago, and I was that way, and my boss, awesome man, noticed that, and instead of him fighting me every step of the way because I did things different, he just let me loose and said, do what you got to do, but just get it done. And I had my set schedule. You know, I in the 2 years I worked there, I only missed 1 day of work, and that was because I had 102 degree temperature, and I still walked into work, and my boss told me to go home because he didn't want me to drop dead. It's just how we are. But I stayed in the back. I didn't deal with customers because I can't. The empathy thing is, I can't get it. So, moving on. Number 6, James Joyce. He was a famous Irish artist. He was known for developing the stream of conscious writing style. Now, remember when I said Aspies are very, very artistic? Now, I can write. And if I remember correctly, conscious writing is just basically having a thought and just throwing it on the paper. And I can do that extremely well. I've written 3 books, and I was working on a 4th, but that's a story for another day. I never wrote an outline. I just would sit at the computer, have the thought, and just type. No outlines, no nothing, and they would flow perfectly. Now, the first book I wrote was a novel. It was all in first person, and it kind of jumped, but you can still follow. But it was the fact that I could sit, write something. I wrote a 600-page novel in 3 months, and it flowed. That's just the way we are, and it's awesome, and I like that. I can't. And as an anecdote, I can't do an outline. When I was in high school and college, they said you gotta write an outline before you write. You know, you start writing a paper or something. And it's just something about for an Aspie, when you write an outline, you'll never follow it. And if you try to follow the outline that you put down, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I'm not going to say it always doesn't work or it always works. I just can't do it with a outline. It just doesn't. And if you hear my voice is kind of croaky, I'm getting over a cold. But I still wanted to get this done. So we're in the top 5 now. Number 5 is Glenn Gould. He was a Canadian pianist and Bach interpreter. He was notorious for his love of routine. He would use the same stool until it wore straight through. Repetition and obsession is 2 common traits of people with Asperger's. Stubbornness would also be a symptom. Now, I don't like the word obsession. That's kind of rough. We are not OCD. And when an obsession can be so broad, we have an interest and we stick with it. But the thing with Aspies is, if that interest fails to bring the gratification, not gratification, but we need that, I can't think of the word right now. I don't like to cut these. It's my first time doing this. But we need to see a result. And if we got this really good interest and then all of a sudden we stop seeing that result, we're done. So, number 4, Isaac Asimov. He was a Russian-American scientist, and he was famous for writing I, Robot. Yeah. As we mentioned, many people with Asperger's are prolific writers. Now, I'm not saying I'm prolific. I just like to write. In fact, Isaac wrote or edited more than 500 books and an estimated 90,000 letters and postcards. Wow. All right, number 3, Vladimir Putin. Now I'm not even going to cover this. It just says the Pentagon thought in 2008 that he had a type of autism, and they just said that Putin's neurological development was significantly interrupted in infancy. Don't know what that means. I don't agree. I don't know the guy. So, number 2, Emily Dickinson. Emily was probably one of the most famous poets of our time. And number 1, and as you notice, there's this trend of the people who contribute major works. The number 1 on this list is one of the greatest and prolific writers, even if it wasn't a lot. Number 1 is Thomas Jefferson. He was a president. He wrote the Declaration of Independence. The man was amazing. But and it says that several leading psychologists have noted that Thomas Jefferson probably has some form of autism. Apparently, he was shy, had an inability to relate to others, and was sensitive to loud noises. He also had some strange habits, like keeping a mockingbird on his shoulder, perhaps to calm him down during social interactions. Unfortunately, most documents pertaining to these early lives were lost in a fire, and it is not possible for psychologists to assess his early childhood behavior for signs of behavior. He wrote the Declaration of Independence, the most prolific piece of sheepskin in American history, and he was autistic. So, the last thing I want to do is I want to read some quotes that are very, very, I think are very important. Tony Atwood wrote, he says, I see people with Asperger syndrome as a bright thread in the rich tapestry of life. We make things not boring. Gary Newman said, I have a condition called Asperger's, which is like a mild form of autism. It means I don't interact properly in certain social situations, which is true. Nicholas Sparks, we all know Nicholas Sparks. He says a person with autism lives in his own world, while a person with Asperger's lives in our world in a way of his own choosing. Now, to some that's kind of like, what? I'm going to clarify. Now, people with autism, like real hard autism, they don't really get out of their own world. They are trapped. It's kind of like them being in their own little universe and not being able to see it. We, however, Aspies, we're here, but we choose how we are in this world. We're kind of like a ghost, if that makes sense. And normal people are just alive people, and ghosts, they can do things of their own choosing. So think of Aspies as ghosts. We are here, but we're not here. So, John Elder Robinson said, and now I know it is perfectly natural for me not to look at someone when I talk. I do that. You will notice in a lot of these things I'm looking over. It's just the way we are. Those of us with Asperger's are just not comfortable doing it. In fact, I don't really understand why it's considered normal to stare at someone's eyeballs. I never thought of it that way. Susan Boyle said, Asperger's doesn't define me. It's a condition I have to live with and work through, but I feel more relaxed about myself. People have a greater understanding of who I am and why I do the things I do. That's why I wanted to do this series. Because I'm tired of people not understanding it and kind of just throwing it under the bus. Tony Atwood said, Asperger's syndrome has probably been an important and valuable characteristic of our species throughout evolution. Sorry, I'm a creationist. I'm going to say through history. Atwood again said, from my clinical experience, I consider that children and adults with Asperger's syndrome have a different, not defective way of thinking. That's the trick right there. We're different, not defective. Hans Asperger, the guy who actually coined the term or figured it out, he said, it seems that for success in science and art, a dash of autism, so we're going to do that, is essential. And not everything that steps out of line and thus abnormal must necessarily be inferior. Awesome. Temple Grayson, who we talked about, who liked animals, she said, what would happen if the autism gene was eliminated from the gene pool? You would have a bunch of people standing around in a cave, chatting and socializing, and not getting anything done. Because we are so insocial, we get stuff done. John Elder Robinson, this is one of three I want to bring out, and then I'm going to end it with my thoughts. Saying you have something implies that it's temporary and undesirable. Remember what I said, that people think that we can work through this? Asperger's isn't like that. You've been Aspergian as long as you can remember, and you will be that way all your life. It's a way of being, not a disease. That's what's called syndrome. This is not a bone that has been broken. This is not something that can be fixed by a Band-Aid. This is not something you can exercise. This is it. This is basically, your leg's cut off. It's not growing back. That's the way you are. That's your way of being. I'm not saying having Asperger's like getting your leg cut off, but I'm trying to give you an analogy. We are not defective, and we are not inferior. And one of the two, or three, it says, David Tammet said, my autism is a mild form. I was diagnosed at the age of 25, partly because it wasn't diagnosable as a teenager. This is just Asperger's. This is what I've been hammering on. But there were certainly traits within the condition, within the autism spectrum in general, especially the high-functioning end, and I think are best looked at as pluses. Graydon again said there is no black and white dividing line between mild Asperger's, which is the mild autism, and computer engineer, for example. And then the last one I want to bring up, here it is. This is the one I think is so amazing. Tony Atwood again. He says, there are many facts within fiction. This captivating story provides invaluable insights into the childhood of a girl who has Asperger syndrome. Fiction allows the author to explore different perspectives, and add poignancy to the experiences of sensory sensitivity and being bullied and teased of someone who has Asperger syndrome. The title, Delightfully Different, describes the Asperger syndrome, but also the qualities of the novel. Now, I'm putting a link to the Amazon page to this book, because I'm actually going to order a copy because I want to read it. But I love that how he says it. Just amazing. And this is the last one, I forgot about this one. This is really good. I know of nobody who is purely autistic or purely neurotypical. Even God has some autistic moments, which is why the planets spin. I kind of like that. His name is Jerry Newport, who said that. And the other one was when the anger is intense, the person with Asperger syndrome may be in what they call a blind rage, and unable to see the signals indicating that it would be appropriate to stop. Feelings of anger can also be in response to situations where we would express other emotions. I have noted that sadness may be expressed as anger. That is me. Not the anger part, but the sadness. And Atwood again wrote this. Atwood is a doctor, I'm assuming. But that's how I am. Remember when I said I don't have a mean bone in my body? I don't get angry. I get sad. I've never been angry. I've never lost my temper in my adult life, ever. I just kind of shut down when I get mad. But I've never hated anyone in my life, and I wanted to bring that out. So I love how he says this. So that's it. I just wanted to bring these out. Now, in closing thoughts, I've gone quite a bit. We're not different. We're not inferior. We're not stupid. I've been called many things over my life. Stupid, dumb, loser. Quite a bit. Some I'm not going to repeat because this get blocked. But I've never in my life thought I was those things. Never thought I was dumb. Thought it sometimes, but we all do. But the one thing I want to bring up in this is that people think this can be fixed. People think Asperger's can be fixed. It can be treated, with medication to help with focus, to help with sleeping, because a lot of people with Asperger's, myself included, have a lot of trouble sleeping because our minds are constantly working. But it'll never go away. This is who we are. This is our life. And a lot of people with Asperger's don't like to talk about this, or if we try to talk to it with someone, we feel very uncomfortable and we don't quite understand how to. And I decided to start doing this to try and get it out. I mean, this is, for me, very, very difficult. Very difficult for me to even attempt to do this. And especially put it out there in YouTube land where I can be criticized. But I'm gonna stay positive. I'm gonna do this. I wanted to do this, and I'm doing it, as you can see. So, in conclusion, don't give up on us. We're gonna be a little weird. We're gonna do weird things. If you got someone who does have Asperger's and they kind of annoy you at times, don't shut them out. That's the worst thing you can do. Embrace them. You got, there's someone who's really, really annoying. Sometimes you got to deal with them. I mean, there are some instances, but 9 times out of 10, if they want to bend over backwards for you, let them. Don't take advantage of them. I can tell you right now, those who are ready to help you, if you're autistic or have Asperger's, and I'm going to tell you what, most of my friends, they know I'll be there if they need me. That's just who I am. So, that's it. I'm done. Thank you for your time. I will maybe make another one of these. Until then, please leave a like, comment, make it nice. That's all I ask. I mean, this is hard enough for me to do this, and we'll go from there. So, until next time, if I ever make another one of these, stay good. Not stay good, but be good and love one another. Best thing I could say. Bye.